Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
Robert Redfield is making headlines with renewed questions over the exact origin of COVID-19, saying in a CNN interview he thinks the virus came from a lab in China.
I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine.
But Dr. Anthony Fauci saying that's unlikely.
The alternative explanation, which most public health individuals go by, is that this virus was actually circulating in China, likely in Wuhan, for a month or more before they were clinically recognized.
A WHO report on the origin of the virus is expected as soon as next week. Meanwhile,
so Mr. Dr. Anthony Fauci should explain $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory. This was a Washington Times article. It was very deeply entertaining to find this out, because I already hated the guy, honestly. But finding out more, he was a holdover official. Obama pointed him out. This article pretty much states President Donald Trump's legal counsel Rudy Giuliani had a roundtable with the radio show, and basically he was they were asking him and probing him about what was going on, and he happened to mention Mr. Dr. Fauci. He then accused Team Obama of sending $3.7 million to the lab in 2014, at the time when the same Obama team had banned the funding of any lab that was involved with virus experimentation. Wow. Explosive. Now, ouch. Politically speaking, he writes, the perception of one of the administration's loudest voices of the corner front, the one for calling out the shutdowns and the shut-ins and the slash government tracking of American citizens and global citizens through if I might add, corporations. It doesn't look that he's financially tied to the Wuhan. I would agree on that, very much so. He then goes on to say, back in 2014, the Obama administration prohibited the U.S. from giving money to any laboratory, including in the U.S., that was fooling around with these viruses. Despite that, Dr. Fauci gave $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory, and then even after the State Department issued reports about how unsafe the laboratory was and how suspicious they were in the money they're developing, the virus was transmitted to the humans, and when the money was never pulled. Now, to me, he finishes writing that. To me, that is one of the most exclusive pieces you can write. This was on April 27th. Surprised I didn't get any run on this, but I mean, this guy he's involved in everything. He's involved in everything. The fact that he's going outside while the government is reporting and saying and giving all these warnings. Actually, you know what? The fact that the government is having no oversight and knows that these things were even going on and are having to be reported by publications is ridiculous. Definitely.
Fauci, we don't know whether the pandemic started in a lab in Wuhan or evolved naturally, but we should want to know. 3 million people have died from this pandemic, and that should cause us to explore all possibilities. Instead, government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up superviruses is not new. Scientists in the U.S. have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the U.S., has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Virology Institute, sharing his discoveries about how to create superviruses. This gain-of-function research has been funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the U.S. and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made supervirus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of Virology.
Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina, not
You don't think
in
inserting
China.
a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain-of-function?
That is
You would
not-
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain-of-function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So
they
do
write
you still
about it.
support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan
Do you
Virology
support
Institute.
sending money? We did, under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support that the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been
Or
infected.
perhaps it would be
in China.
responsible to send it to the Chinese government that we may not be able to trust with this knowledge and with this incredibly dangerous viruses. Government scientists like yourself who favor gain-of-function research.
I don't favor gain-of-function research
that
in
the
China.
disease
You are
arose
saying
naturally.
things that are not correct.
Government defenders of gain-of-function, such as yourself, say that COVID-19 mutations were random and not designed by man. But interestingly, the technique that Dr. Barrick developed forces mutations by serial passage through cell culture that the mutations appear to be natural. In fact, Dr. Barrick named the technique the no-see-em technique because the mutations appear naturally. Nicholas Baker of the New York Magazine said nobody would know if the virus had been fabricated in a laboratory or grown in nature. Government authorities in the U.S., including yourself, unequivocally deny that COVID-19 could have escaped a lab. But even Dr. Shi in Wuhan wasn't so sure. According to Nicholas Baker, Dr. Shi wondered, could this new virus have come from her own laboratory? She checked her records frantically and found no matches. That really took a load off my mind, she said. I had not slept for days. The director of the gain-of-function research in Wuhan couldn't sleep because she was terrified that it might be in her lab. Dr. Barrick, an advocate of gain-of-function research, admits the main problem that the Institute of Virology has is the outbreak occurred in close proximity. What are the odds? Barrick responded, could you rule out a laboratory escape? The answer in this case is probably not. Will you, in front of this group, categorically say that the COVID-19 could not have occurred through serial passage in a laboratory?
I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However, I will repeat again, the NIH and NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
You support it in the U.S. We have 11 labs doing it, and you have allowed it here. We have a committee to do it, but the committee has granted every exemption. You're fooling with Mother Nature here. You're allowing super viruses to be created with a 15% mortality. It's very dangerous. I think it was a huge mistake to share this with China, and it's a huge mistake to allow this to continue in the United States. And we should be very careful to investigate where this virus came from.
I fully agree that you should investigate where the virus came from. But again, we have not funded gain-of-function research on this virus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, no matter how many times you say it.
There was research. There was research done with Dr. Shi and Dr. Barrick. They have collaborated on gain-of-function research where they enhanced the SARS virus to infect human airway cells, and they did it by merging a new spike protein on it. That is gain-of-function. That was joint research between the Wuhan Institute and Dr. Barrick. You can't deny it.
Senator Paul, your time has expired. Dr. Fauci, I will let you respond to that. We need to move on.
Excuse me?
I will allow you to respond to that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I don't know how many times I can say it, Madam Chair. We did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Catch new episodes of the
Crimes against humanity, a betrayal to the United States of America, a betrayal to the world's confidence, the world body, medical bodies. Fauci needs to be investigated. His offices needs to be raided. He needs to be taken against his will and taken to court. This is really bigger than the Nuremberg trials. It really is bigger than almost like a Nazi-style level event. This guy needs to pay for what he's done. Even back in 2014, the Washington Times reported that he should explain $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory. He tries to hide it as like, oh, it's a universal medical thing. We just want to share information, make sure. So at the time when I've already shown you how he was funding it through the Obama administration. Then it was stopped. All of a sudden, it was stopped by the Obama administration. Doing due diligence to assess the risk and benefits of life science gain of function research. The White House President Barack Obama. So even Barack Obama's White House had to shut it down because of how dangerous it was. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy and Department of Health and Human Services today announced that the U.S. government is launching a deliberate process to assess the potential risk and benefits associated with a subset of life sciences research known as gain-of-function studies. Talks about the specifics there, about what they're studying and whatnot, and it tells you that the advisory body. So they're going to take deliberate process involving different entities, the National Science Advisory Board, oversight. So they get very, very thorough, and it states during this pause. So this was a pause on the gain of function, like you saw Senator Paul grilling Rand Paul. U.S. government will not fund any new projects involving these experiments. Encourages those currently conducting this type of work, to whether federally funded or not, to voluntarily pause their research while the risks and benefits are being assessed. The funding pause will not apply to characterization of testing of naturally occurring influenza, MERS, or SARS viruses unless there are reasonable expectation that these tests would increase transmissibility or pathogenicity. So even the Barack Obama White House had to put a stop to it. Okay? And I tweeted Dr. Fauci's NIH did fund the Wuhan virology lab. So you saw Fauci lie with your own eyes and ears, lie to the American public, not only about masks, but now he's lying about his own funding. Dr. Fauci's NIH did fund the Wuhan virology lab. Here's the verbatim admission by their chief scientist, Dr. Shang Li. Who did I talk to you about this before in my previous videos? Shang Li is the director of the Wuhan laboratory and a suspected spy by me, who took the gain of function research at the North Carolina University. Okay? There's your receipts right there, baby. Right there. Okay? So you've got all of the Chinese scientists there working. I mean, this is published November 30, 2017. So the gain of function research continued after the Obama years. It was begun again during the Trump administration under Trump's nose. So Fauci went under Trump's nose and started the gain of function research with the Chinese agents, researchers at North Carolina, Ralph Barrick. And Rand Paul knows this now. He knows this now. That's why he's grilling him. If I know this, Rand Paul and other intelligence agencies are going to know about this. Especially people that have oversight like this. Insane, guys. Completely insane. I'm bringing you breaking information. I'm bringing you information that I've been researching in my previous documentary about I'll put the link down below, about how the Wuhan laboratory. I've been talking about this since April and June last year, guys. Okay? It's out there. You just got to go and find it. New coronavirus emerges from bats in China. Devastates young swine. April 4, 2018. NIH, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. That's Fauci. Okay? So there you go. There's your receipt. China was already looking into the bat viruses. So now they go to the gain of function, North Carolina, that Fauci started back up again. And the gain of function research that allows these viruses to go from animals to human. So Fauci made that happen by not only funding China, but starting up the gain of function research after it was paused in the Obama administration. I mean, this is insane. This is insane. Project information. This project was given to Peter Daszak. Okay. Oh, look at all that funding throughout years 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. They continued the funding throughout, guys. Okay, showing you the receipts right here. National Institute of Health, Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare, approved animal welfare assurance, the funding. Okay. And again, this was dangerous research that the State Department and the White House put a pause on, but NIH Fauci started it back up again. Okay. I mean, insane information, guys. Wuhan lab received U.S. taxpayer funding to conduct bat research until 2024. Okay, so guys, we're still funding this. We're still funding this. So not only did we fund to make COVID, the U.S. taxpayer, Fauci took your money to gain a function that then got stolen by Chinese spies, Xi Li, whatever her name is. And I'm sorry, guys. And it was then created by the Chinese government, which they had already been working on. Okay, made that specific gain of research function that made it jump from animals to humans. Created the virus. They lied to the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization is covering for the Chinese. Fauci's covering for the Chinese. I've shown you previous videos of Fauci and his leaked emails talking about with his doctors and his NIH doctors that they can't publicize their emails until the Chinese give them approval. I've shown you that in my previous videos. This guy should be in jail right now. The fact that he's coordinating with the Chinese. Okay? China, Fauci, and the origins of COVID. Look, questions. Now everybody's questioning this because of the article that has been coming out. And the origin of COVID. Did people or nature open Pandora's box? Nicholas Wade has been making explosive rounds. Again, guys, I broke this before Nicholas Wade, okay? I broke this back in April. Me, Nicholas, from Odyssey Media, broke this back in April 2020, okay? I had my YouTube removed. Okay? So he's been writing, he's pretty much talking about everything I've said about the gain of function. You guys should really read this. I'm not going to read it because it's a lot, but it talks about all of the gain of function and how Fauci turned it back on. Please read it. It's even scarier because he had to go from the New York Times, which would not let him release the story, to the bulletin of 100 seconds to midnight doomsday clock. Oh my God. If that's not scary, I don't know what isn't. Okay, so there you go. So here's some more. Politico. In 2008, diplomats warned of risky coronavirus experiments in a Wuhan lab. No one listened. They were experimenting with the bat viruses that I told you. Okay, and at the same time, you had Fauci funding this. It's been already confirmed by congressional hearings by Rand Paul. And on top of that, here's the receipts. Okay? It's no longer a conspiracy theory, guys. It's coming out. The truth is coming out. Gain of function research is coming out. The State Department ensuring a transparent, thorough investigation of COVID-19's origin. Okay? Has repeatedly called for a transparent organization. Illness at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The United States government has a reason to believe that the several researchers inside the WIV Wuhan Institute of Virology became sick in autumn 2019 before the first identified case of the outbreak. Okay, look at that. So they got sick. They got sick from it. Okay? Someone did something. Because the Chinese were already working towards this. And I'm gonna show you more evidence as why I think it was an offensive weapon. I don't think it was a leak. I think it was deliberate. Okay, this raises questions about the credibility of WIV senior researchers Xing Li's public claim that there was zero infection among the. Okay, here's her name again. Xing Li. Okay. What did we hear that name again? Dr. Xing Li. I'm butchering her name. I'm sorry, guys. Shengli. Okay, she was working with the same funding that was doing the gain of research in North Carolina University. Okay, public claim that there was zero infection among this or any SARS-related viruses, SARS-CoV-2. Insane. He talks about the research gain of function. Here's number 3. Secret Wuhan Institute of Virology links to military research. Despite the WIV presenting itself as a civilian institution, the WIV has collaborated on publications and secret projects with China's military, has engaged in classified research including laboratory animals experiments on behalf of the Chinese. We've known this. This is public. Everybody's known this. Again, U.S. State Department. Okay? So, I'm not pulling this out of my okay? This is the U.S. State Department back in January 15, 2021, okay? There's the evidence for you guys, okay? The Australian virus warfare in China, military documents. China military scientists discussed the weaponization of SARS coronavirus 5 years before the COVID-19 pandemic. There's your smoking gun, guys. They were planning on using this, and either got leaked or they did it on purpose and are acting like it's a leak. Why would Wuhan City be open before the world? Wuhan was open way months before any of the other nation or cities were opening up. Why? Because they created the virus. They're gonna have the first vaccines. They have the real vaccines because they have the virus. I had another video where I told you that no country has quantified the virus because China does not let anybody in there to get the actual quantified virus. Therefore, the vaccines that we're taking are not real vaccines. That's why Wuhan City was open before the whole world. Outlining the ideas in a document that predicted a third world war and would be fought with biological weapons. Now, I can't get in there because I have to pay for it. Okay, but we can still see it with our good friends at Zero Hedge. think I bookmarked it here, guys. I'm again. This is all. It's all public, guys. It's all public. Okay. Chinese military discuss weaponizing COVID 2015 to cause enemy's medical system to collapse. 2015 Chinese military discussed on how to weaponize SARS coronavirus 5 years ago before the COVID-19 pandemic emerged in Wuhan, China, where CCP scientists were collaborating with US-funded NGOs. Yep, so-called gain-of-function research. I've shown you. This is what. So the main guy that's telling you to put your damn mask on, okay, even though in democratic states the cases are higher, okay, the main guy who has interest in the vaccines, whose best friend is Bill Gates, who owns the majority of all the vaccines. I made a video about that. Okay, you can look at the other videos that I've made in Odyssey Media. I made a video about Bill Gates as well, owning on them the majority stock of Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer, to make bad coronaviruses infect humans more easily. He continues to say in a 263-page document, which was the one I was showing you. Where is it at? The Australian one that I was showing you that you have to pay for. But I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not gonna pay for that. But again, if I can get it right here, why not? You know. Obtained by the U.S. State Department. That's where they got their intel. That's where Pompeo and the State Department got their. It says PLA scientists note how a sudden surge of patients during frequent hospitalization during a bioweapon attack would cause enemy's medical system to collapse. Again, this is insane, guys. It's the same thing that the State Department is saying. Okay? It's not a conspiracy anymore. Not when you have the receipts. Not when you have the direct funding. Okay? The receipts are there, guys. There you go. There you go. No conspiracy. Okay? It's a conspiracy fact at this point. Guys, you guys gotta help me out here. Please subscribe and like, okay? Because this research here is prime research, and again, I'm putting it for you guys because I worry about things. You know, I get worried. I get worried that people don't talk about this enough. Insane. So it goes to talk about more about the article, how their Air Force were talking about it. This is one of the editors-in-chief reported to the top leadership of Chinese Commission. Talks about their Pompeo. So, and then here's the guy. EcoHealth was the agency that was working with the Bat Lady. Here he is. EcoHealth under NIH, Fauci, openly participating in gain-of-function research. U.S. universities, institutions, and you already seen in my previous videos that the Chinese use universities in America to infiltrate and take research, knowledge, ingenuity from the United States. They took this from us, engineered it with bad viruses that they had been created it, and made it into COVID-19. So the bat woman known as Zheng Li, right here, getting all that funding, then she goes back, works on the lab, gets sick from the COVID-19, and who knows if they did it deliberately or not. But either way, their military was already talking about using it, okay, for a Third World War. I mean, I am beyond shocked. I am beyond shocked that this is happening. I mean, this is like the James Bond movie. And it's like, it gives me shivers, because it's like, is this really happening? You know? I've been covering this for a year. And now I get to see the receipts. Now I get to see Rand Paul show the truth. Man, Rand Paul should be president. It should be Rand Paul DeSantis. Okay? That should be the ticket. Rand Paul DeSantis. Okay? Insane, guys. Insane. This is the most explosive information that I have brought to you yet. I'm compiling you all of this research for you guys. This is hours of research, hours of reading, okay, documentations just to find these receipts. Okay, China built lab to study SARS back in 2017. Look, it all happened in the same time frame. 20 miles from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Then they blamed it on the seafood market. 20 miles from where Fauci was funding this laboratory with the bat lady. What was her name again? I'm sorry, guys. Zheng Li, okay? Her, right here. And Fauci was giving EcoHealth, the guy here, that money so you can give it to her. They're toasting for COVID. Yay, COVID-19. Let's toast to the world. You know, and this dumb guy doesn't even know he's getting used by the Chinese military. This is serious, guys. This is the stuff that stars World War III. This is stuff that stars World Wars. A biological weapon from a communist country, a non-democratic communist country that has internment camps for people. This is worse than Hitler. Hitler would have dreamed to do this. Okay? China is the new Nazi Germany times 100. Mass murder. Fauci should be arrested right now. Okay? And on top of that, immunization with SARS coronavirus leads to pulmonary immunopathology on challenge with SARS virus. National Library of Medicine. So they are the vaccines that they're giving us. Okay? Virus-like particles, mice inducing protection against challenge animals exhibiting immunopathologic type lung disease. Look at this. So it's giving the animals lung disease. Go ahead and take your immunization, guys. PubMed.gov if you don't believe me. There you go. National Library of Medicine. Is this a conspiracy? Is the National Library of Medicine conspiracy site? Huh? They're telling you that if you take the damn COVID immunization, you get this. You get lung disease. You get strokes. Thank you, Fauci. Thank you for funding it all. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Mwah, mwah. Thank you, Fauci. You know what? You deserve to be in a cell. And all this conspiracy. You're a traitor to China. You're a traitor to your country. Bill Gates and you and all of your other collaborators who have not been found out yet should be investigated. But of course it's not going to happen. Instead, the FBI is going to look for the January 6 people. Yeah, those are the true culprits. Yeah. So you know what? You know what, guys? Spread this truth. Look the links. Read what I posted. You have the links there. You can pause the videos and look at the links. I've shown everything to you. If at this point you don't believe this conspiracy is real, sorry, but you're never gonna understand it. So I hope that I've explained it to you guys. Again, this is Nicholas here, Odyssey Media. You guys need to double check what I've shown you. It is the most explosive things that I have put up to date now, and the fact that this man is not being arrested and raided right now is baffling. And he's the head medical officer. Traitor to the Chinese so they can have economic, and it makes sense. Wuhan was open before the world, even though they were the epicenter of it all. Man, that's ironic, but it's not, because the Chinese actually made the vaccine because they created the virus. That's why the world couldn't isolate and make a good vaccine, because we never isolated the virus. So I don't know what else to tell you guys. I'm only here to present you the evidence, and hopefully it's good enough, and hopefully it changes some minds and hearts out there. But again, NIH documents, guys. NIH receipts. His own receipts. And he's lying in front of a congressional hearing in front of America, while Rand Paul is asking him if you did Gainer research. He did. No way I did Gainer research. Yeah, you did, bro. Obama told you to turn it off, and you turned it back on during the Trump administration, because guess what? You don't like Trump. So we're gonna go ahead and betray the country for China, for a Nazi-like worse Nazi country that has internment camps, that is threatening to take Taiwan and Hong Kong. These are the literally new Nazi, and you just betrayed the United States for a Nazi-like communist country that's worse than the Nazis. But they're smart. They're smart because they move and they infiltrate. They infiltrate our medical system. They infiltrate our colleges. They infiltrate our intelligence agencies. And they're taking everything from us. Okay? They made the virus. They killed millions of people. Biowarfare. Treason against its own country. Continues it, unpause it even after Obama tries to save his own ass. And now they're giving us fucked up vaccines that aren't even real vaccine because they never isolated them. Isolated the unquantified virus. Serious shit, guys. I'm sorry to curse, but this is serious stuff.
Dr. Francis Boyle drafted U.S. legislation for the Biological Weapons Convention, known as the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989. That was approved unanimously by both houses of Congress and signed into law by President George H.W. Bush.
On the proof, the smoking gun, that the COVID-19 came out of that UNC BSL-3 North Carolina with the Bat Queen from Wuhan BSL-4. If you have a look on it, one of the principal investigators was the Food and Drug Administration, the same people who are going to be giving this emergency approval to this, I would call Frankenshot on Thursday, are the same people who developed COVID-19. Let me read the principal authors here. There are 8 of them, in addition to the Bat Queen. Quote, National Center for Toxicological Research, Food and Drug Administration. So the Food and Drug Administration were working in cahoots with the Bat Queen from the Wuhan BSL-4. And these are the people who on Thursday are going to be giving this emergency use authorization to these extremely dangerous messenger RNAs. Now, you know, if you've taken a course in genetics, you know how powerful messenger RNA is. It goes into your body. It can do anything. It can just turn around the genetic composition of your body. We have no idea. But again, the critical point is the Food and Drug Administration manufactured COVID-19 with the Bat Queen for the Wuhan BSL-4. And now on Thursday, apparently, they're going to give this emergency approval for these Frankenshots that they say are going to protect us from the COVID-19 that the FDA helped develop. These Frankenshots will violate the Nuremberg Code on Medical Experimentation that went back to the doctor's case at Nuremberg, where we participated in the prosecution for war crimes of the Nazi doctors. In the run-up to Gulf War I, the FDA gave emergency authorization to experimental vaccines for biological warfare agents, not as dangerous as COVID-19, but anthrax and botulinum. But those shots, out of 500,000 U.S. troops who were inoculated, 11,000 died and 100,000 were disabled. And those were healthy young men and women. Well, I think that's what's going on now. We're talking about population reduction. We're going back to the Kissinger National Security Memorandum saying that population reduction and control are in the national security interests of the United States. So we've been through this before, and those figures, I think, are just the floor for what we can expect to happen here, because these messenger RNA vaccines that the FDA is going to approve on December 10 are completely novel and extremely dangerous. So yes, I think we're going to see a mass kill-off. Now, yesterday in the Wall Street Journal was an article by Scott Gottlieb indicating what their agenda is. Scott Gottlieb was former head of the FDA. Again, the same people who gave us COVID-19 and are now going to give us the emergency use for these 2 messenger RNA. He was head of FDA in 2017 when the Department of Health and Human Services, of which he's a part, ended the pause letters on the gain of function work at the UNC BSL-3, where the Wuhan Bat Queen was and the FDA were developing the COVID-19 biowarfare weapon. If you read yesterday's, Gottlieb's an insider. He knows what's going on here. And he's signaling to all the movers and shakers and the plutocrats who read the Wall Street Journal exactly what's going on. If you read Gottlieb's essay yesterday, first, they're going to go after all the old people, and that means then they can kill them off first, and they will not have to pay any more of their Medicare benefits. Then they're going to go after blacks and Latinos and indigenous people. That's what is facing us as human beings, and certainly as citizens of the United States of America, where this all came out of. COVID-19, the UNC, BSL-3, and now the FDA giving this completely bogus emergency authorization in clear-cut violation of the Nuremberg Code on medical experimentation.
Dr. Fauci's agency has stonewalled Judicial Watch's request, a lawful request. So this is an outlaw response. FOIA law requires documents be turned over within a certain amount of time. And if they're not turned over, there has to be justification for the withholding. And that's not happening. The other big issue is COVID-19. I know even by saying the word COVID-19, it means that this video will be less likely to be shown and more difficult to share on social media because, as I said, big tech is policing any discussions of COVID-19 because they are on behalf of government enterprises who are pushing a particular narrative on COVID-19, suppressing discussion about it. But Judicial Watch is coming up with facts and information about COVID-19 and Wuhan and China and all of that is just remarkable. We've already uncovered, for instance, how Fauci's NIH and I think he has one of the, so NIH has a bunch of institutes, National Institutes of Health, and one of the institutes underneath it is the National, I think, Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, of which Dr. Fauci is the head. And we uncovered records, thanks to a lawsuit we filed on behalf of Daily Caller News Foundation, showing that Fauci's NIH, he and his deputy, Fauci authorized a release that went out of its way to praise China in terms of its response to COVID. And then B, they were signing confidentiality agreements whose terms were dictated by China, and they had to get China's approval to release certain information. All of this thanks to WHO, which Biden, by the way, got the United States back into and is still kowtowing to China. So that all being said, another big issue is where the virus came from. Now, it obviously originated in China, and the question is, did it come from an animal to human transmission, or as some allege, was it the result of a virus escaping from a lab there? And there's a big lab in Wuhan called the Wuhan Institute for Virology. And the United States, directly and indirectly, has provided money to that institute. So it's a big controversy. And so what Judicial Watch wanted to do was find out where, how this money was being spent and what it was being spent on by Fauci's agency. And we've been asking for about a year. I think we asked in April of last year, and we're still getting the runaround. I could say, can you believe it? Would you believe it, right? So we're still getting the runaround. We asked for all internal communications regarding the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, all agreements and contracts and related documents. between the Fauci agency and the Wuhan Institute, and all records, including agreements, fund disbursement records, and related communications regarding a reported $3.7 million in grants provided to NIH, by NIH, your tax dollars, to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In April 2020, the Daily Mail first reported the documents show the Wuhan Institute of Virology undertook coronavirus experiments on mammals captured more than 1,000 miles away in Yunnan, funded by a $3.7 million grant from the U.S. government. The NIH in April 2020 suspended funding to the grant, which was to the nonprofit Eco Health Alliance that had previously established a partnership with the Virology Institute in Wuhan, China. But in August, so they suspended it because the news got out that we gave money to this Eco Alliance, this Eco Health Alliance. They were giving money to the Wuhan Institute. People went ballistic. The tax dollars being used that way, so they shut it down. So what did they do next? They waited a few months and gave another grant of $7.5 million, reportedly to, quote, focus on Southeast Asia and the emergence of coronavirus, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how that money's being spent. So we want documents about it. For almost a year, Dr. Fauci's agency has stonewalled Judicial Watch's request, a lawful request. So this is an outlaw response. FOIA law requires documents be turned over within a certain amount of time. And if they're not turned over, there has to be justification for the withholding. And that's not happening. So the agency's outside the law, as far as I'm concerned. We want to know about the connections to this controversial Wuhan laboratory. The American people have a right to know about Dr. Fauci's National Institutes, his Allergy Institute and Infectious Disease Institute, their involvement with the infamous Wuhan Institute of Virology. I mean, this story about the U.S. funding for the Wuhan Institute's work in coronaviruses and other things like that, it's been out there a long time. Why is Judicial Watch the one suing for the information or having to sue for the information? They have something to hide? In my experience, if they turn over documents that they should be turning over under law, it's not because of the bureaucracy, it's just too slow. It's usually because they have something to hide. That's the truth.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our...
The highest death rate in the world. How could we possibly be jumping up and down and saying, oh, Governor Cuomo did a great job? He had the worst death rate in the world.
No, you misconstrued that, Senator, and you've done that repetitively in the past.
If we're not spreading the infection, isn't it just theater?
No, it's
not.
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect. I don't favor gain-of-function research in China. You are saying things that are not correct.
Oh man, the sparks fly when Dr. Fauci is interrogated, let's say, by Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, a member of the Senate Education, Health, and Labor Pensions Committee. And the senator joins us right now. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, you're a doctor, so you've got special doctor questions of the doctor. He does not particularly like it. He was asked this morning over on another channel about the give and take between the two of you. He had this to say.
Can I just ask about you and Rand Paul? Does your body tense up every time? And by body, you know what I mean.
Yeah. You know, Gail, I just don't want to get into that tit for tat with him. I just don't understand what the problem is with him. But, I'm just going to do my job and he could do what he wants to do and we'll see what happens.
Well, Senator, he says he's just going to do his job. But that seems to be what you've got a problem with, how he's doing his job.
Well, if he was being interviewed by a journalist, they would have asked, did the NIH, did your specific division of the NIH give money to the Wuhan lab? That's incontrovertibly true. What he's arguing is he's parsing his words. He knows his group gave money, but he's saying, oh, it wasn't for juicing up these super viruses. We gave it for other research. It's sort of like the Planned Parenthood argument. Yes, we give taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood, but it's not for abortion. Dr. Fauci's arguing, yeah, we gave it, the NIH and my group specifically gave it to the Wuhan lab, but they weren't supposed to be juicing up viruses.
The money is fungible, as you say on Capitol Hill.
But it's even worse than that. The Dr. Shi, the bat scientist that's the most famous one from the Wuhan Institute, when she published her papers, which scientists across the board are saying are gain of function, they were juicing up viruses, she gave credit to Dr. Fauci. She said the funding came from, we have this in black and white from a peer-reviewed journal, she said the funding came from Dr. Fauci's National Institute AID, NIAID. This is Dr. Fauci's baby for 40 years. She lists him in the credits. He can't escape this. He did the funding. And my other question is, China's a rich country. They're kicking our butt in so many places. Why would we be giving them money for their research? Can't they spend their own money on their own research?
Senator Paul, Dr. Fauci calls your exchange a tit for tat, and he said he doesn't know what your problem is. That's because he's been placed on a pedestal and no one thinks it's appropriate to question him. No one, it seems, except for you and a few others. Have you received the answers that you want? We saw in that clip you're asking him about using New York as a model, why you should be masked when you have already received the vaccine, and importantly, what you're talking about this morning, the origins of the coronavirus. He said to you directly, that's not true regarding his support of gain of function, when we know there's an editorial going back to 2011 that he has supported gain of function research. Have you received the answers you're looking for, Senator?
No, but we've sent inquiries. There's been freedom of information as well as inquiries from House oversight when it was under Republicans and now from our office, Ron Johnson, others. We're asking specifically for some NIH papers and the conclusions, because in those conclusions, we believe it will be unequivocal from a group of scientists that they will conclude that yes, the Wuhan Institute was making these super viruses. Now, they're still going to argue they didn't fund it, but this is a really important argument. It's not a partisan argument. So when Dr. Fauci goes on these other channels and they laugh it up and yuck it up, but they never ask him, did you fund the Institute? See, he's trying to evade that he funded it at all. I asked him the general question. I didn't ask him whether he funded gain of function. I said, did the NIH fund the Wuhan lab? And he danced around it and answered a different question. But there is no question at all that the NIH funded this lab. Whether it was gain of function, there's many scientists, Dr. Ebright, Dr. Baltimore, many scientists out there. There were 200 scientists in the Cambridge Working Group that are worried about creating these super viruses in the lab and the possibility that they could get out. So this isn't just me. It's not partisan politics. Shouldn't be partisan at all. We should want to protect the public in case another virus like this could escape.
This is so crazy, though, because if this happened because of the NIH funding, and that came from Dr. Fauci, and then this spreads into a global pandemic, and now he's in charge of the response in the United States, the irony of that, what do you make of that?
Well, it's even worse than you make out. The person they appointed to investigate the lab from the WHO perspective is the guy who gave the money. So NIH gave the money to a group called EcoHealth. The head of EcoHealth, a guy named Desank, they got him to investigate whether Wuhan was doing anything inappropriate in their lab. But if they were, wouldn't he then be culpable? So doesn't he have a self-interest in smoothing things over? I'm not saying he did cover things up, but you wouldn't appoint someone who's in the line of supply chain of giving the money to them, because ultimately here's the rub. I don't know whether it came from the lab. Nobody knows whether it came from the lab, but who would be culpable? Dr. Fauci could be culpable for the entire pandemic. So could Dr. Desank, and so could Dr. Shi. I'm not saying that happened. I don't know. But you wouldn't put the people who gave the money to the Wuhan lab in charge of the investigation. That looks like a cover-up.
No kidding. And it's curious that it seems like the only people asking about the origin of the coronavirus, which has killed tens of thousands of Americans, all seem to be Republicans, which is odd. You would think
and it shouldn't be that way.
No, absolutely
there should be bipartisan concern. There's 11 labs in the United States that are cooking up and creating super viruses. That's worrisome.
Just the term super virus is pretty scary. Senator, Doctor, thank